Hi, this is Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my classroom. Now today I've got another composition. I call this number 2, and it's a waterway shadow scene. Now, I took the photograph a couple years ago, and I did a drawing. So I decided to go ahead and do a video on this, and I made a painting. So let's go to my painting table, and I'll show you how I got started. Okay, this is composition number 2. Remember, this is the compositions I'm doing to improve my artistic designing. And you can see here I have the darks and the lights. Now this has got a reflection here from the sky reflection. This is water. These are bushes, and these are trees. So this is going to be my area of interest up here in this section with a reflection down in the water. Now I'm going to start out with my colors. Cobalt Blue, a little bit of Quinacridone Violet. Got a little bit of violet in the sky, just to change that color. Cobalt Blue by primary, then a little bit of Cerulean Blue. A little bit of Cerulean. A little more Cobalt. And I'm thinking about having, because of all the trees and everything, just having a touch of green. So this is green number 1 down here at the bottom. And I'm going to start out with the light colors first. In watercolor, you have to start out with the lights. So I'm going to start out with this mixture of Cobalt Blue and Quinacridone Violet. And I think what I'll do is I'll use my little test sheet here just to see what I like. Yeah, look at that. That's beautiful. I love that. See, it's a nice light color, but it's not blue and it's not violet. So yeah, it's a mixture of the two. Perfect. So I'm going to come across here, and I'm going to put in that first layer, and I'm going to pick up more blue now. Okay, so as I come down, I'm going to get more blue. And here's where that green comes in. There's a green tree line behind there. So I think this is where I'll start putting the green in. Just a hint of green. Here's horizon line. So I'm going to go ahead and put that green in there just for right now, just to get a little color in there. And then I'm going to pick up that Cerulean Blue. On horizon. Okay, so I'm going to continue on with that cerulean. Oh, this is the reflection of the water. Quinacridone Violet. Because the reflection in the water is going to be the colors in the sky. So I'll pick up a little bit of that violet. Okay, well that's my first wash. It's going to be a very light wash, which is what I want, because that's the lightest part of the landscape. It's going to be the sky, a little bit of there's a little tree line back here, then the reflection in the water, and then the water reflections itself. So I'm going to have to let that dry before I go back in. Before I go any further, I forgot to mention I transferred the sketch, which the sketch is 4 inches long by 3 3/8 inches high, and I converted this to a grid on my painting paper, 140-pound Gemini watercolor paper, and the dimensions are double, so it's 8 inches across here, and it'll be almost 7.5 inches here. So each mark on here is double on the painting board. Okay. So 2-to-1 ratio. And then I drew the same grid lines in there I did before to transfer those points. And you'll see the grid lines that I have. Now I've emphasized some areas that I'm going to make sure I have. Those areas mean I'm going to have hard lines. The rest are going to be probably soft edges. The hard edges are going to be here defining the impact area. Mix up some colors for the foreground here. And I'll start out with a base coat of yellow ochre. This will be my lighter color in the foreground. The foreground's right here. A little yellow ochre. And using a big 3/4 inch flat brush, silver brush, natural hair. And I think I'll pick up some little bit of burnt sienna also, just to change the color a little bit. Using a flat brush and doing a little bit of brush stroking here to give the impression of grass in the foreground. Different brush strokes, different angles. Getting the texture here of yellow ochre and the burnt sienna colors. I'm filling in this foreground with the colors of the grass that's here in the waterway. And the smaller brush, 1/2 inch flat brush, picking up a little bit of green. Mix that color in there to give a little more color change and also a little more interest here in the foreground. I'm blocking in this area just to get the basic colors, and I'll come back and put some more detail here. I use with the same colors and go back and fill in that little middle ground area, which has got a little landmass just before the trees. So I'm going to put in some colors in there just to block in a little variety of the colors, the same color change. A little burnt sienna, a little bit of green mixed in. So that'll define the middle ground area just next to the water. So this is kind of the foreground start here, and then of course start into the middle ground. Get that grass here that's just next to the waterway. And I'll change the values of it, but I want to get a base coat down started. And then these trees back here will be darker, be my darkest darks, and this will be my lightest area back in here, an impact area. Okay, I'm going to mix up the darker values here for this background, middle ground tree lines here and here. So darker colors. We'll start with a little bit of dark green, which is hooker's green, dark green. Get a little hint of that. And then I'll pick up a little ultramarine blue. This will be a mixture of dark colors. I want some lights and darks back here, but it'll be a combination of colors. Then you're going to pick up a little bit of quinacridone violet. That'll be different. I'll have a little bit of green mixture in there. Brush. Pick up some yellow. A little bit of quinacridone gold maybe, to brighten up some of the area, just to give a little flavor. I'm going to start out here, over here. Start out with a little bit of green mixed in with some colorful tree line. And then pick up a little bit of this lighter mix. As I come out toward this area over here, it's going to be a little bit lighter because it's it's the sun is coming through, or the light's coming through those trees, so areas will be a little bit lighter. So I want to indicate there that we got a little lighter value there. And the background colors are going to make a variety of colors, and to put it in loosely right now, let the colors run and get some texture back in those middle ground trees. This will be my darkest value area. And I'm picking up some lighter colors just to give it a little more variety of color. That's a little bit of yellow ochre. Again, adding more color in there. Let the colors run, build a texture, and concentrating on the edges, because this is near the impact area, so the edges will be a harder edge, but also a little more defined. Adding some darker colors in here while it was still wet. So they'll run together, make little, maybe some blossoms up here. But giving it a little more texture back here in the background. And I'm going to paint the reflections in the water. Reflections from the trees here, and also reflections here down into the water. This area is going to stay open. The sky. I mix up a little bit of Cobalt Blue. Mix it in with the palette color here, the greens. And about the consistency of skim milk. Not too light, not too dark. And load the brush. I'm using a 3/4 inch flat natural hair silver brush. I'm going to load it up with lots of paint. And I'm going to use a dry brush stroke coming across here. Starting from the outside, lifting it up. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of color off there. I'll use a tissue, go down while it's still wet, pick up a little bit of that color. I'll go to the other side. I'm going to turn my painting upside down because I'm right-handed, so load the brush again, lie it flat, dry brush stroke, which I'll get a broken irregular edge. I'll take the tissue again, pick up some of the excess moisture. Finished in the block end. I've got, except for the background, I've got the major portions here: the foreground, the waterway, and then the middle ground. Now in the background, which is where the impact area is back here, this area, I'm going to put a little more color back in there. So I'm going to start with some green number 1. This is where the main part of my design is. And I'll take a little bit of yellow lemon. So this will be my impact area, it'll be the lightest area. It's also got the brightest colors. Now also I'm going to take a little bit, I'm going to tone that down just slightly to put a little bit of the blue into that green. And I'm going to put in a reflection here. Reflection into the water. Okay, now this completes my block end period. Got in all the major areas, all the elements I want to have, and I got the dark middle value and a light value. Okay, this is the number 8 round natural hair brush. I think it's another silver brush I have in my inventory, also at my website. I'm gonna put a little color now in the back here behind. There's a row of trees behind this area, just way off in the background. I'm going to put that color in there behind in the impact area to show a little more interest back there. This just adds a little more color into the background. This is the impact area, which is going to get a lot more attention. The middle ground is the darkest area, so I'm mixing up some more dark colors. Those dark colors are ultramarine, quinacridone violet, a little bit of burnt sienna. This dark value will make the impact area come out a little bit better. So darkening up the middle ground here is my plan. Even though I have to cover up some of the lighter colors there in the middle ground. The values of the middle ground are most important to separate the middle ground from the background. Moving over to the other side, adding a darker value also on the left side of the middle ground. Mixing up a nice dark color of brown and violets and blues. Saving some of the lighter areas next to the impact area for little highlights. This darker color really makes the impact area or the background show up a lot better with a darker middle ground. Also separates the middle ground with the reflections in the water. And that completes the middle ground darks. I'll still work on it a little bit later. I'm going to work on some edges here. Gonna make sure this tree over here has got some color in it, but also the edges. These are branches hanging out. And same way over here. I'll work a little bit. We're in the foreground. These are tall grasses, so I'm using a number 6 rigger from Silver Brush. Comes to a nice fine point, and I'm going to use. Let me mix up my colors here. I use a combination of yellow ochre, burnt sienna, I'm going to load up my rigger brush and doing some tall grass. The rigger brush does a nice job of giving nice thin strokes. I'm moving this is the foreground area, and the interest here is to have a little texture showing the tall grass that's in the foreground. I'm also using the rigger brush with side strokes, give me a little texture. The rigger brush is very nice brush to have. It gives you nice thin strokes, but you can also use it to create texture and cover a paper very quickly. Here I'm working on the edges. I want the grass to overlap the shadow pattern in the water. So the edges here is very important in the foreground. Not too much detail, but just enough detail to show that there's grass here, and also give you an element of the landscape. Adding a variety of color, a little bit of greens, using the side of the rigger brush. A little bit of shadow pattern in the foreground, using darker color. The rigger brush does a great job on giving nice fine strokes, simulating the foreground grass. I mixed up that burnt sienna with ultramarine blue. Make a nice dark brown. I load the brush from the side, load it up from the side, and I'm going to make some of these areas really darker. Okay, the final touches here is this area over here. I'm going to calm down a little bit, put a little more shadow, and I'm going to use my palette in a bottle fine mist sprayer, fine mist, and it's got cobalt blue in it. And I'm going to hold a shield over here, so I don't get any. I don't want to get any color out. And I'm going to prime it, and I hold back about 8 to 10 inches, and lightly drop that color in there. Okay. I might do this once or twice. Do it one more time. Or I want to knock this corner down over here. I'll pick up some of the dots that come in there. Okay, let's see how to tone that down on the side over here. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to turn my penny around, and I'm going to spray this way, holding the sprayer back by 8 to 10 inches away at about a 45-degree angle, and I'm knocking down that color. And take a little tissue here and pick up some of the larger dots. There's a little dot pattern, it's okay. Be little dots in the water, doesn't hurt it. And I think I'll do one more time over here on the right. I want these to both be about the same value. So I cover up my shield and go back and come in, spray a little harder. Okay, that's about right. Okay, by toning down the outside with that Cobalt Blue has brought you into the focal point where the reflections from the water and then back into the background, and the darks and lights takes you back into the painting. I put a little water in the brush here and just moved here. I'm going to put a little tree trunks. I'm going to show a little bit of lifting here now that the paint is dry. So re-wet that area just with a brush with some water on it. Let it soak in for about 10 seconds. This Holbein watercolor reliquefies look at that. Just by tapping that, it's already brought it up. Pat it dry, find a clean area, and do just a little bit of rubbing. There's a tree trunk. And put a little branch out here. One little branch. And let it dry. Let it wet there for about 10 seconds. And then take a clean towel, pat it dry, and just rub a little gently. There's the branch. Now, might do a couple little ones over here. You just wet the area, let it sit for about 10 seconds. What that reliquefies the paint that's on the paper. And then just take a clean terry cloth towel, blot it so it's dry, then you rub it gently, and it comes right off. Let's try one more. Just take a damp brush. Wet the area. Let it sit for about 10 seconds. Blot it dry. And just rub. It gives indication of if I want to take a little bit of this dark off, just a little bit, maybe just a little bit of a highlight here on the sand or on the ground, just a little bit of highlight. Just wet the area, about 10 seconds, and blot it dry, and then just rub. It lights up the area. Little spot. I'll do one over here. Just wet in the area. I'll just lighten up the, just give a little highlight on the ground. So I just wet the area with just water and a brush. Let it sit for about 10 seconds. Let it reliquefy the paint. And blot it dry. And pick another dry spot on the towel. Just rub it. Okay. There. Okay. I'll review the critiquing of my own painting. This area back here is still a little too bright, so I'm going to add another layer on top of this to bring out the tone down the colors here, and I want to be able to have this a little more unity between this area and this area back here. I'm going to mix up a little bit of Cobalt Blue. What I plan on doing is putting a little more cooler layer back there, a little more blue mixed in with a darker green. And a little bit of burnt sienna. Burnt sienna will tone that down just slightly. This composition is, I'm calling it composition number 2, which is Waterway Reflections. And it all started out with a photograph I took several years ago, and I decided to make a composition out of this. So this goes along with my my personal art journey. I'm going to be doing compositions as often as I can. I do one each day, and then I'm starting to paint some of the ones I've already come up with. So I've got a whole book here of compositions I've started. So this one here started out with the darks here in the middle ground with the light area in the background. And when I got to this point here at the end, I decided I needed to darken this area up in order to make it more compatible with the rest of the painting. It started out to be too light back here, so I added a little bit of darks to make it more like the rest of the landscape. And I titled it Waterway Reflections. This was a great composition, and I really enjoyed painting that. The materials I used were Holbein watercolor paints, the Gemini watercolor paper, and Silver Brush brushes, natural hair. All available at everestwatercolors.com. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, select the bell to be notified of my next video, and give me a thumbs up, it helps my ratings. And leave a comment if you have questions, I'll get back to you. See you next video.